Lately I started to see tons of videos on TikTok where young men and women whom I consider to be Gen Z complain about capitalism and how bad the modern society is. That is surprising to me since I'm a part of Gen Z myself. And despite seeing some disadvantages of the capitalistic system, I am not seeing any better option for now. Moreover, there is a rising trend of socialist moods among Gen Z since they think that other type of economic system is going to change their life for the better, which also is pretty boring. That all pushed me towards the question why Gen Z hates capitalism, which I will be trying to answer in this video. Let me begin with the impact of social media. The rapid development of modern technologies changed pretty much every aspect of our day-to-day life. However, one of the most significant changes happened to the ways of how we receive information. For millions of years before the existence of the internet, people used to live in small circles in their community, mostly divided by their income level. So the poor mostly communicated with the poor, the middle class with middle class people, and rich guys with rich guys. Your income level defined what neighborhood you are going to live in, what schools you are going to attend as a child, and what university you are going to enroll into later, which defines the circle of people you see, communicate with, and eventually compare yourself to and compete with. Today, the income of the family you are being born to also defines the school and neighborhood quality. However, nowadays it doesn't define circle of your communication and interests. Nowadays you go on social media and see how very different people live their lives. You see guys who sold everything and went hitchhiking in the forest of South Asia, you see millionaires on their yachts, you see 20-year-olds with Rolexes and Lamborghinis, as well as all kind of other successful and not so people. We can't say how many percent of those internet rich influencers are really rich, and what percentage of those are just faking their successful life by renting out their Ferraris for a few hours and filming hundreds of TikToks to sell you a course later. But I can assume that most of them are actually lying. However, this is not really the topic of today's video. By looking at successful people on social media, young men and women of Gen Z suddenly begin to compare themselves not only to their peers around them, but also to those guys online. The problem is that it's pretty much impossible to catch up with all of them, and at any point in your life there will be someone more successful than you on the internet. The main issue is that when seeing all of these super luxury expensive lifestyles on social media, Gen Z realizes that it's impossible to make such money by working a normal job, receiving education, and moving on the corporate ladder. Most of the people don't have enough courage and desire to even try to make big bucks on the internet, and another part tries for a while and then fails. That is why they start to think that the problem lies in the system and begin to blame capitalism. They want to be rich. They think that many people are rich, which is not true to the extent social media wants us to believe it is. And they don't see a way to become rich fast while working 9 to 5 and getting their career, as well as are not willing to take the risk of opening their own business. So that is how the doubts regarding the capitalistic regime are starting to occur. Another factor which has been brought to our lives with the development of the internet is transparency. Nowadays it's possible for each and everyone to go on the Google and search for the salaries and lifestyles of the CEOs of successful companies. And when the Gen Z is working at McDonald's receiving just $15 per hour and see that the CEO of McDonald's is getting paid millions of dollars per year, the feeling of unfairness is getting over the roof. The thing is that CEOs have always been receiving way bigger salaries than employees due to their experience and responsibility. However, before such a rapid development of the internet, nobody used to know what are the exact numbers, and now that is the case, which makes lots of Gen Z very jealous. Gen Z doesn't want to work 20 or 30 years to become high-paying CEOs themselves, since they realize that most of them are never going to achieve such a high rank, as well as actually do not want to put the best years of their life into work for such companies, since they believe that those are not going to provide them with the significant enough income anyways. This leads us to the next reason for hating capitalism. During the last decades, prices of everything have been skyrocketing like crazy. Although it always have been the case in the capitalistic society, the situation with Gen Z is quite different. For example, in 1963, the median family income in the US was about $6,000 annually. In 2021, the number reached about $88,000, a rise of more than 1,300%. It may seem this is a significant rise, which should cover the rise of the housing prices, but the situation is not as good. Nationally, in the US, income rose by 235% and housing prices by 372% between 1984 and 2021. However, locally, prices rises have been way more significant, such as in the state of Massachusetts, where prices rose by 469%, while incomes increased just by 221%. Other sources say that housing prices increase outpaced inflation by 150% since 1970. Home prices alone have increased by 1,608% since early 1970s, while inflation has increased just for 644% in comparison. Thus, people are seeing a great decline in their purchasing power across the last 5 decades, especially when it comes to home ownership. So $20,000 in assorted goods in 1970 would cost you $148,000 today, but a $20,000 house in 1970 would cost you $341,000 today. So as you can see, the average cost of living is constantly getting higher and higher, and Gen Z stopped believing the idea of slaving away at corporate jobs and later receiving financial freedom in return. The thing is that you can slave for years and will probably live a decent life. However, it's very unlikely that you are ever going to escape the rat race due to the insane price growth. The simple example is that just to afford your own house, which is a necessity, not an option, you will have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, so practically you have to be pretty close to becoming a millionaire in order to just buy a house. So the main idea behind capitalism, growing capital and living off it later, is becoming pretty much impossible for Gen Z, especially in the areas with high prices. And now we're talking about the people with education and the corporate jobs. Life for those working in fast food restaurants or other unqualified jobs is way more difficult. Since capitalism is not working for the lower and middle class as it used to work before, nowadays more and more Gen Z people are starting to change their life goals from collecting more stuff and seeking status at work to seeking personal fulfillment, traveling and collecting experiences. The thing is that they are not doing it because of how good their life is. They just realize that it's impossible for them to collect a lot of stuff, which everyone loves to do, and seek something that is good to replace the nice houses, cars and other materialistic goals. I am not saying that materialistic success is far better than psychological experience from visiting and traveling the world. However, I personally prefer both financial stability and travel, but not living frugally in order to see the world. Because of rising inequality in modern day capitalism, Gen Zers are becoming extremely active online when it comes to social issues. Gen Z is starting to lean towards socialism and in extreme cases even communism, not because they learned a lot about these economic regimes, but because they have seen a few videos on TikTok about how cool it is to live in the society where everyone is equal. However, they have never lived in socialist societies themselves, so all they know about it is idealistic to the extreme extent. I haven't lived during the socialism myself, however I live in a post-USSR country, so I have heard a lot about socialism. The thing is, there have never been an equality among people during the socialism in the USSR. People always find a way to try and be better than others. Smart people are always living better than those with lower IQs. There are always leaders and rich people, and there are always poor people who have nothing. That is not the problem of a regime, that is just how we are built, and no change of laws or an economic regime is going to change that. So what can I recommend to my fellow Gen Z peers? I can agree that nowadays life could be hard, and it may even look that nowadays it's financially harder than it was 50 years ago. However, it's important to remember that nowadays life is 100 times better than the life of those who lived 200 years ago. Nowadays the financial situation may not be the best for poor and middle class people, however nowadays with modern technologies we have as much opportunities as no other generation had before us. You can literally learn everything and anything just by sitting in your room with a laptop. You can learn any new language, how to code or cook. You can open a business of any kind just by typing on your keyboard. You can create a YouTube channel or a TikTok account and become the new celebrity. The problem is that in order to do that, you shouldn't be sitting online on social media blaming the economic regime, but you should be putting hundreds and thousands of hours of hard work in order for the success to come to your life. It's hard, of course it is, but what other choice do you have? You are never going to change the economic regime or the prices of housing in the neighborhood of your dream, but you can change your bank account balance just by putting in more work. So stop thinking and hating and start working.